to Tide 100.9, powered by Julio Jones Kia Mazda.
Roll Tide, the best sports talk, period. Your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Tua again, play action, rolls right, stands in, throws wide open, Forrestall, the tight end of the 10. He's down the left side, 5. He'll power in. Touchdown, Alabama. That was 27 yards of a beauty to Miller Forrestall, the tight end out of Cartersville, Georgia. And Bama leads 6-0.
Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show on this Metal Monday, 9:20 a.m. And I tell you what, if you had Miller Forrestall and Major Tennyson catching the first 2 touchdown passes of the year from Tua Tagovailoa, then you're a pretty smart cat. Because I don't know that I would have had that with all those receivers running around. But that's what happened. Forrestall caught the first touchdown pass, and Major Tennyson caught the second. Now, certainly the receivers got involved. Devontae Smith caught a TD, as did Jerry Jeudy, as Alabama rolls over Duke 42-3. Joining me as he does every Monday to recap the game and the weekend in college football is iTalkSEC Scott Moore, also a member of the Jay Barker Show. Scott, good morning.
Top of the morning to you, Gary. How you doing, my friend?
Oh, man, hanging in there. Let's talk Bama football, the good, the bad, and the ugly. First, we'll start with good, which the bottom line was the final score. I mean, it's 42-3 after a sluggish first quarter. I said earlier, I just think for whatever reason, maybe it was the 4 players being suspended for the first quarter, maybe it was still the hangover from the Dylan Moses injury. I just didn't sense a lot of enthusiasm. It was 0-0 after the first quarter. And the way it felt to me, Scott, was almost like, let's just get through this first quarter, get our guys back out, and then go play. So I was a little disappointed with how the game started. But certainly Alabama was the better football team and outscored them 42-3 the last 3 quarters.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that certainly the difference in the second, third, and fourth quarter when everybody came back at full strength, there seemed to be a little bit of momentum shift there. They started off very, very slow, and also played. I don't know if people really paid attention to it. You and I would, but. They played a lot of different offensive line combinations in the ball game. They tried different guys at left tackle, some different guys inside. And so early on in the ball game, there wasn't a lot of continuity in the offensive line. And it all starts there, Gary. Everybody knows about the skill positions at Alabama on offense. We all know, what can be done there. But you start a third-team tailback who, didn't get a whole lot of carries last year, and it looked like it early on. So, when Najee Harris came in the ball game, immediately gets a screen pass. It gets called back, but it was a nice 49-yard gain, and he shows the quickness and speed there. And you kind of got a sense right there, okay, the offense is about to go into high gear. Then Devontae Smith got involved. But, Tua was typical Tua Saturday. He is a surgeon. He is scary accurate. And you get the ball in 4's hands and 17's hands and 6's hands. And then Najee Harris back there, the offense looked like we thought it would. But I think the big key for me, I thought the inside linebackers, particularly Shane Lee, and at the point of attack was outstanding. And then Christian Harris, I thought they were in the right place. That's what you look for in these kind of games. Are they in the right place? Are they where they need to be? Are they following their assignments? And I thought that they all played very, very well Saturday from an assignment standpoint. So I think you look at this ball game and go, hey, we got what we needed out of it. The defense at times was dominant. The offense at times was dominant. And you overwhelmed an opponent that you're supposed to overwhelm. And I think that's what happened Saturday. So I think assignment passed, give the grade an A, and move on to the next week.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with everything you said. As you pointed out, Tua, 26-31, 336 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Those are Heisman numbers. The receivers did their thing. Jeudy, 10 catches, 137 yards. We'll get to the freshman place kicker and punter in a moment. But you kind of alluded to it with the offensive line, trying some different combinations, which they did. I guess if there is a disappointment offensively, particularly after I kind of said I thought Alabama would be much more physical in the run game. They rushed it 42 times for just 145 yards. And as you said, I think Jerome Ford, this time last week, he was counting on being the third, maybe a week or so when they found out that there would be some suspensions among the team. But, he's thinking he's going to be the 13th tailback going into camp, probably the 14th tailback till the Trey Sanders injury. And all of a sudden he's starting. He was a little, I thought, nervous. And he did come out and bust a 37-yard touchdown run later in the game. But even once Najee came in and Brian Robinson came in, I thought that still we saw, particularly with Najee, and I'm with you, he's talented, but the desire to just want to bounce everything to the outside. And, I want to see him with his size occasionally stick it up in there and use his size. And it seems like in short yardage situations they bring Brian Robinson in because of Najee's unwillingness to run between the tackles. Now, if you disagree with me, I certainly want you to chime in, but to me, he's got to get more physical. If he's going to be the first team tailback on this team with that big offensive line, he's going to have to quit, in my opinion, looking to bounce everything to the outside and get to the perimeter and make a big play and start just sometimes busting it up in there to pick up those tough yards.
Totally agree. And, for this team to get to where it needs to get to, Gary, that is mission number one. They've got to be more physical on the offensive line. They've got to have a more yards per carry average during the season, up the middle, outside, whatever. But they got to run the ball better. If they're going to win the national title, they have got to be dominant up front, and they've got to be able to open holes. And they're you look at Georgia the other night, you look at some other teams with really good offensive lines in Oklahoma, Georgia. They had no problem running the football, man. I'm not going to compare competition right now, but against teams that you need to overmatch physically, you need to have 4 or 5 yards of carry average minimum. And so, we're nitpicking here, but that's something that you got to do, and that's the question. Can you be more physical than you were a year ago? I think in time they can be. Again, a lot of these other teams I just mentioned, besides Oklahoma, they're breaking in a pretty much brand new starters across the front. Georgia's got a bunch of guys up front that they're used to. But Alabama, again, they've tried a bunch of different combinations Saturday. There's a couple of new starters in there. Evan Neal's a true freshman. Landon Dickerson hadn't played yet at Alabama. So Matt Womack was kind of playing all over the place. So, listen, they're still trying to find the right combinations, and that's okay when you're playing Duke and then another group of 5 opponent this Saturday, where you can work in the offensive line right now and try to find your most physical guys and your most consistent guys. So, but I think by the time we hit the stretch part of the year, I think they're going to have that figured out. The talent's there. The ability is there. I think it's only a matter of time that it starts clicking.
Yeah, I hope so, certainly. All right, 9:28, time to take our first break here on the Gary Harris Show. We'll be back with Scott Moore for a couple more segments, and we're going to continue to break down this Alabama game in depth. He's already hit on some topics, but we will talk more about the defense. A really impressive debut, as Scott alluded to, for those 2 young inside linebackers. Of course, DJ Dale as well at nose tackle. Didn't have but 1 sack, but I thought overall the bottom line is, as I said earlier, not giving up points, and they only gave up 3 of those. We'll get into the kicking game with the freshman Will Reichard pulling double duty as the punter and the place kicker. Did miss 2 field goals, boinked them off the uprights. First time off the right upright, the second time off the left upright, but you can see the talent with his leg. He gets the ball up in a hurry, and he's got a strong leg. So we'll discuss him as well, and then later on we'll take a look around the SEC at what went on, the stirring Auburn comeback behind Bo Nix, obviously the disaster in Knoxville, and we'll also talk about the Jalen Hurts in Oklahoma. So a lot of football to cover with Scott Moore. Keep it tuned right here to the Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9.
Covering University of Alabama sports, as well as the national and local scene as well. The Gary Harris Show, only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Wide out, goes to the far side, or at least the wide receiver does. That's Britton Brown. He gets run over. Ball comes loose. Bama's got it. 26-yard line. Takes a straight drop. Looks right side. Fade route. Intercepted by Alabama. Picked off by Trayvon Diggs. And for Alabama, their first interception of the year.
Couple of Tide turnovers forced by the Bama defense as we welcome you back in to the Gary Harris Show here for this Monday, September 2, 2019, the Labor Day edition of the program. Scott Moore from iTalkSEC and the Jay Barker Show is with me, and we're breaking down the Alabama game in depth. We've already touched on the offensive line. Of course, not much you can say about Tua. He just did his thing. The receivers are dynamic. We discussed, though, the lack of production in the run game, which is going to need to be picked up if Alabama is going to have a championship season, in my opinion. I just think at some point you got to be able to run the ball, and I thought it cost them last year late in the season with their inability to be physical up front. That's something they're going to work on. Defensively, Scott, you already alluded to it with Christian Harris and Shane Lee, and then, of course, DJ Dale at nose tackle, 3 true freshmen right up the middle of that defense. But, my gosh, Alabama was really good. They only allowed 204 yards, as I said. 60, I think, 9 of that came on that one drive right before halftime after the Tide couldn't pick up the first down. Yeah, only had the one sack by Terrell Lewis, but the Duke didn't throw it a ton, didn't run that many plays. I know they can get better, but I think we saw what we expected to see. That's a defense that's young, athletic, physical, and I thought played very, very well.
I think Alabama fans also saw how much Alabama missed Trayvon Diggs at one corner, and also you mentioned Terrell Lewis. Trayvon Diggs played one of his better games in his career at Alabama. That interception he made in the third quarter was spectacular. It was a perfect textbook way to play a pass like that, and right on his guy, waited, guarded him perfectly, and then made a spectacular INT. And listen, getting him and Terrell Lewis back healthy and also having 33 healthy really I don't think 33 was really healthy last year. I thought he played at about 75 or 80%. He looked quicker Saturday than he's looked in a couple of years. So, getting those guys back and then the young linebackers surrounded by that kind of leadership, 5 senior starters on defense. And listen, Xavier McKinney, I didn't see a better safety in the country watching games this weekend, Gary. Xavier McKinney, always where he needs to be, physical, and is that guy in the back end right there that shores everything up. So I like the way they played Saturday. I thought they were relentless. I thought they were all, the problem last year, Gary, is you and I have talked about too many busted assignments last year, people in the wrong spot, lapses. That didn't happen Saturday. They were always in the right place Saturday. Looked like an Alabama defense. I think there's a lot to build on there moving forward. I was very encouraged, and I think this is going to be one of the better defensive units in college football this year. I agree. I just think you're getting better and better, and you're right. Having Trayvon Diggs back out there at corner, man, he's a lockdown guy. He's got a chance to be a high draft pick, and that's a big boost to that secondary. The kicking game, the freshman Will Reichard, not only did he win the kicking job, he won the punting job as well, at least on Saturday. Now, he just punted it twice, and I do think we'll see Skylar DeLong some this weekend. But he punted for a 40-yard average, and his kickoffs were outstanding. His extra points were high, but he did miss his 2 field goal attempts. And I thought he hit both balls well. The first one he hit, the 49-yarder attempt to 50 yards, whatever it was coming right at me, and it looked good, and it drifted off just a little bit, hit the right upright, but really high, about halfway up on the upright, so it had plenty of distance. And then the second one is one that he needs to make, but I think he overcorrected a little bit. Again, he hit it up high and had plenty of leg, but he pulled it a little bit and hit the left upright. So, when you're an Alabama football fan, you just get, like, wow, what is the deal? But I do think, Scott, and I'm interested if you agree, that the leg talent was on full display. His kick just looked different to me than a lot of the kickers that we've seen at Alabama. And even though he was 0 for 2 in field goals, I got a lot of confidence this young man has a chance to be special as a place kicker. Gary, one thing we always do, and an hour before the game, the first thing I do always, I watch the kickers. I've done that since I was a kid, and it's one of those things that when I get to the stadium, I watch both kickers and watch pretty much everything they do in the pregame. And ironically, early on when Will Reichert came out of the gate to kick in the pregame. Yeah, he ironically bounced 3 off the crossbar in the pregame, and matter of fact was able to hit both sides of the crossbar on 3 different field goal attempts in the pregame. Now they were long field goals, and I'm like, wow. So when they doinked off the off those large goalposts in that stadium, it didn't come as a shock. But I think kicking in there is a little bit different. First game of the year, you're on national TV. You've never kicked on a stage like that. But I'm with you. The guy's got extraordinary leg strength and talent. And watching him kick off and watch, again, the other observations in the pregame for me before he got out there, the leg strength jumps off the page at you. He has got an electrified leg. That guy he can kill it. His kickoffs were spectacular. They were deep. A lot of them were unreturnable, and his punting was good. He's a versatile kid. You're right, Gary. They're going to be fine at kicker, and again, all 6 extra points. That didn't happen last year, not one time for Alabama, where there was always a struggle on the extra point, and those are momentum killers sometimes when you miss one. So I thought he played well for his first game. I think he'll be fine moving forward, and I think he's going to be one of the best kickers in Alabama history if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, I liked what I saw, too. All right, before we wrap up our Alabama recap and move on to the rest of the SEC, this was a Power 5 opponent from a conference that, has the defending national champion in it. I think Duke's going to have a pretty good year. I like their team. I like their coach. And it was an impressive victory. Let's be honest. This coming Saturday afternoon, they're playing Alabama's playing one of the worst teams in the country. I mean, New Mexico State's horrible, and that's why you see the line at 54, 55 points to open. Well, so my question is this: they got to play quite a few people in this game, but I guess Saturday you go out, you try to put the hammer down early, and then you do use this game to look at some things like you were talking about with the offensive line and get a lot of these young players in. Get Mac Jones some extended playing time. Use this game, I hate to say it, as almost an experimental game, but don't you think in the second half they're going to empty the bench in this one and don't want to get anybody hurt, want to be sharp early, but there's no reason for many of these guys to be playing into the third quarter, I'm guessing.
Yeah, listen, you got the Southeastern Conference opener 2 weeks now from South Carolina, and that's exactly what you do. You work on combinations this week. You try to find the most cohesive offensive line that you can. And then once you find that, you let those guys grow into it. But, yeah, you empty the bench this weekend. You get up, put the hammer down, as you said, get up big, execute. You want to look good in executing your offense. You want to play well on defense. Again, no missed assignments, that sort of thing. And dominate the football game and then get out of there. That's exactly what you'll see Saturday, and try to make it as less painful and physical on your football team as you can. It's going to be a hot game, and you got to get ready for South Carolina and Ole Miss, and that's what they got to do. That'll be the strategy. That'll be the game plan, and don't pay attention to statistics and Heisman races and all that. Looking great, that's for other schools and other people, man. Go out there, dominate the opponent, play 4 quarters, get out of there, and go get ready for the rest of the year.
All right. The gulf between Alabama and one of its longtime rivals, Tennessee, right now is, it's wider than the Gulf of Mexico. We've seen it. Nick Saban's never lost to them as the head coach of the Crimson Tide. And we were talking about New Mexico State, that just being a paycheck game for them. Well, Tennessee had a paycheck game this past Saturday afternoon. Georgia State came up there for $950,000, supposed to be a sacrificial lamb, 2-10 a year ago, and the Panthers beat the Vols. And they just beat them. I mean, they outplayed them. They whipped them. I don't know what to say. Not that I thought Tennessee was going to be that good a football team. When I heard some people talking about they might make a move in the East, I laughed. I mean, I just – when I saw them last year, I thought maybe they just need to try to focus on having a winning record. Still, like everybody else, I did not expect them to lose to Georgia State and get whipped in the process. I mean, how stunning is this? I know it's just his first game of his second season, but you know how fans are. I mean, the confidence level in Jeremy Pruitt right now has got to be, lower than a curb. I mean, this was terrible. I mean, this is about as bad as it gets for an SEC team at home.
Yes, Gary, I tell you what, Sean Elliott, who's the head football coach at Georgia State, he served some time as the interim at South Carolina years ago. And you know what he said? He said last week, he said, I think we are better at the point of attack than Tennessee. I think we can win the line of scrimmage. And guess what? They did.
They did.
They went up there, pushed them around on offense and defense. And Tennessee played with zero passion Saturday. And I'll tell you what, Gary, the lapses on defense that they had, lining up wrong, missed tackles, it was a horrible performance by what I think is one of the better staffs in the Southeastern Conference. This staff that Jeremy Pruitt has there, it's not just on him. It's on that entire staff up there. I mean, come on. That was one of the worst efforts I've ever seen. And Gary, I'll tell you this. I don't know, painting the broad picture of this, I'm not sure Tennessee ever gets back in our lifetime, to be honest with you. They are so far behind, and the gap to get back to where they need to get to. Gary, I don't know if they can. I don't know if you can make that improvement, because great players right now aren't going there in droves. They're going to Clemson. They're going other places, man. And you got to recruit up there, and you got to recruit up there better than anywhere in the country to be competitive. And they're not going to be able to do that. And I hate to say it, and I love Jeremy Pruitt, and I like some of the guys on his staff, but getting back to where they need to get, and just getting to 7 or 8 wins up there consistently. I don't know who could do that up there right now. This is a long, long road. And they've already lost their fan base for this year, Gary. Everybody's sick to death of what's going on up there. They're almost at the point of no return right now.
Yeah, it looks pretty bad. Time to take our break, and we'll have more with Scott in our last segment. We'll take a look at the Auburn stirring comeback against Oregon, a couple of other SEC disappointments from this past weekend, and Jalen Hurts. Sooner debut. It was something special. There's no doubt about that. 9:45 on the Gary Harris Show. Also want to tell you, for all your insurance needs, you need to call my friend Andrew Conifer. Conifer Insurance Allstate in Northport. Are you in good hands? If not, make that phone call or go by and see him in Northport today. The Andrew Conifer Agency, Allstate Insurance. Get in good hands today. We're back with one more segment with Scott Moore from iTalkSEC Radio and the Jay Barker Show right after this on the Gary Harris Show.
Your home for Alabama Crimson Tide football. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Buddy, you're a boy, make a big noise, playing in the street, gonna be a big...
Talia hands off. Ford, big hole. Ford's 20. Ford's 15. Ford's to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown, Alabama! 37 yards. Talia Tagovailoa handing off, and Tua is going absolutely wild on the sidelines.
The great Eli Gold on the call. Talia Tagovailoa getting into the game and handing off to Jerome Ford, and boom, touchdown. And Tua was going crazy on the sidelines. Great moment during Alabama's 42-3 victory over Duke. Scott Moore with me for one more segment. We mentioned the disaster in Knoxville, but it wasn't the only disappointment in the SEC on Saturday. South Carolina and Wyoming, or South Carolina and Missouri as big favorites. Both lose. South Carolina to Mack Brown in North Carolina and Charlotte. Missouri, despite 400-plus yards passing from Kelly Bryant, loses at Wyoming. And Ole Miss, which was a slight underdog, but loses in the Liberty Bowl against Memphis. So let's start with Mizzou. Bryant in his debut put up big numbers, but mistakes, turnovers killed them. First of all, Scott, what are they doing going to Wyoming to open the season to begin with? Who scheduled that?
You got that right. I'll tell you what, that game reminded me a lot of the game that Clemson played against, I guess it was West Virginia in the Orange Bowl, when they were going in to kind of put the game away, fumbled at the goal line, it was a 14-point swing. That's what happened to them on Saturday. Clemson or Kelly Bryant is down there. They fumble at the goal line, and Missouri gives up a big play at the goal line there, and they go 90 yards with a return, and it just flipped the whole ball game. And then Kelly Bryant made some poor decisions with the ball, a couple of turnovers in the red zone, one threw a pick in the end zone as well. And that game just quickly turned on a dime. As you mentioned, Missouri ran up and down the field in the ball game offensively, and Bryant had a big day, but the turnovers absolutely killed them, and those turnovers turned into, I think, 21 points directly for Wyoming, and quite frankly, Missouri never recovered. So that game was a head scratcher. The way that game went. Listen, Missouri, I think, can recover because their schedule's manageable. What looked like a 9-win season for them, that loss last night will probably keep them for that. And, can they compete with Georgia? Probably not. But that's a game you got to win if you're Missouri, and just gave that one away. As far as South Carolina, up 20-9 on a team that you're more talented than, you're going against a true freshman quarterback. You got Jake Bentley. And Jake Bentley threw his 2 picks in the final 4 minutes of the ball game.
Yeah, he was terrible. I was so disappointed in his performance.
Yeah, 20-9, you're in control of the game. And you could tell, man, Will Muschamp was just despondent after that game. That really hurt to lose to Mac Brown. I think that was a personal game for Will Muschamp. Yep. They were in control, Gary, should have won the ball game. But listen, give Mac Brown and North Carolina credit. They won 2 games last year.
Yep.
He went in there, changed the culture and the mindset. That was a big win for Carolina. And you know what? For a team that has got the toughest schedule in America now to play, that was by the way, you can't lose that game Saturday and then go on to have a decent year now. Not with the schedule, South Carolina. That was a must-win, and they let it slip away late, and with it may have gone their season.
And for Ole Miss, they got the 2 high-profile coordinators in, and that is McIntyre on defense, Rich Rodriguez on offense. Defensively, the Rebels played very, very well. Offensively, they weren't good, and that's kind of been a reverse of what Ole Miss has had an explosive offense that couldn't stop anybody in the past. But bottom line is they lost to a big rival in that city that, even though that's where University of Memphis is located, Ole Miss considers Memphis their town. But I tell you what, I said this when he got the job. I think he's a good guy. I think Matt Luke is a short timer there. I just don't see him getting it done at Ole Miss, and I think we saw more evidence of that on Saturday.
Yeah, and there's some disturbing news after the game where he and Matt Corral had to be separated, by teammates and coaches because Matt Corral apparently didn't like the play calling. And listen, when Matt Corral went there, there's a reason why he ended up at Ole Miss. He was one of the top recruits in the country, and just quite frankly, a lot of great teams and great programs passed on him because of his personality and because of his attitude. And his attitude and personality showed up in the locker room Saturday. So we'll see how this Matt Corral he's the best quarterback that Ole Miss has, but right now it's an experiment at best. And Rich Rodriguez didn't bring a lot to the table Saturday in terms of creativity and play calling. But we also got to remember they lost 3 receivers to the NFL, a couple of offensive linemen.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of rebuilding their offense a little bit. There's a reason why they were an underdog to Memphis on Saturday, and the line was 5, and that's the way it ended up, 15-10. So, you lose a game that you were an underdog in. So I don't think most of us – I didn't expect Ole Miss to win that game. I thought they'd play better, but I didn't think they'd win. But again, this is a team that is going to really struggle in SEC play. I think it's between them and Arkansas who's going to finish at the bottom of the SEC West this year.
All right, Scott, real quickly, we're getting up against the clock, but stirring comeback for Auburn, down 21-6. They rally to win 27-21. Bo Nix wasn't great in the game, but just like his dad, he's got the clutch gene, man. And when he had to have it, he went to the former Bryan High School standout, Seth Williams, there at the end of the game, kind of a one-on-one, go up and get it and beat your man, and that's what happened. And I'm telling you something, that's the kind of game. We know how Auburn is. They're a momentum program. They can get on these incredible rolls and have unbelievable years, and other years it can tank for them. I thought that was a huge win for them and for their freshman quarterback. And I tell you what, I know it's just one game either way, but I think for their team and their psyche, pulling that game out is going to be huge for Auburn. I say look out for Auburn now.
Yeah, Gary, listen, we thought they'd win that game. You and I have talked about that. Auburn, finally, their physicality in the offensive line and defensive line, when it mattered most in the fourth quarter, it showed up. And Nick's made a play. That's what he does. He makes plays at the quarterback spot. Did a great job finding his receivers, also taking the game and taking ownership of the ball game late. He's a dang good quarterback. He's a mature quarterback. He's 20 years old, and he played like it Saturday night. So, again, though, they're going to have to play like that every week. They got a tough road ahead of them, and that was a game, Gary, they had to win Saturday. They went out and got it done, and give Bo a lot of credit. Auburn showed a lot of toughness late in that ball game by coming back down 21-6 in that ball game.
And finally, Jalen Hurts' debut for Oklahoma was a story. I mean, he went into the record book. I mean, you have to. I know it's Houston and the scenario, but still an unbelievable performance for Jalen. And I think we have to look at the fact that right now Lincoln Riley has to be recognized as the top offensive / quarterback coach in the country, in my opinion, with what he's able to do out there with regardless of who the quarterback is. Although we know Jalen's very talented. You're about a minute. Your thoughts on the Hurts debut?
Well, what he was able to do last night. Only two quarterbacks have been able to do this, Gary, in the last, I think, in the last 15 seasons. 300 pass yards, 3 pass touchdowns, 150 rush yards, and 3 rush touchdowns. Jalen Hurts is one of them. The other one is Johnny Manziel. And extraordinary play last night by him. But for Oklahoma, I keep saying it. No surprise that Jalen put up those numbers. But is Oklahoma elite on defense? They gave up 31 points a game last year on defense. Guess what? They gave up 31 points. They sure did. So, and Jalen Hurts talked about that, and I think it's post-game. For them to win the national title, they got to be better on defense. They can score with anybody. We know that. I just don't think they're elite on defense. That's what it's going to take to win a national title in the playoffs as well. No surprise, though, that Jalen did what he did last night, or his interview at the end of the ball game too. He's a class young man, and he's going to flourish in that offense. Lincoln Riley, you said it, best offensive mind, maybe in all of football. He is one of the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, he'll wind up in the NFL here soon. And I'm glad you said that about Jalen's interview. I wish we had more time, but we don't. But I think that shows you how focus-driven he is to prove a point. As Holly Rowe was trying to shower him with compliments, and he wasn't having any of it. He's like, nope, we got to be better than this. Hey, great stuff as always, Scott. Remember, people, you can catch Scott on the Jay Barker Show noon to 2 weekdays, and also his show, iTalkSEC Radio, all over the Gulf Coast, and go to wearesportsradio.com for more info on that. Follow him on Twitter at iTalkSEC. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Gary. Enjoyed it, buddy.